Hello guys, and welcome back again to the channel. On today's video, we will be mixing a vocal because my last post on the community where I asked what video tutorial would you guys like to see next on the channel. A lot more people chose to see me mixing vocal. So I've actually got this vocal and a piano. Obviously, this is easier to mix because you've only got a piano to struggle with. There's no kick, bass, and hi-hats and stuff. That's why I chose let's go with this, and then maybe on a next video I might choose one that's a bit more complex. But on this one, all I just want you guys to see is the things that I naturally reach out for when I'm mixing vocal, like the kind of frequencies that I always listen out for, and other few bass and bobs that I do on most vocals. Obviously there are other ones which I do on certain vocals depending on the kind of song, but the ones that I do on literally every mix when I'm mixing vocal is what I want to touch up on this part. So let's get into the video. So the first thing is I first listen to the vocal, obviously alongside with the instrument, but in order not to waste time, I'll just assume that we've listened to this. I will eventually play it so you guys can hear what it sounds like. But when I get a vocal also, I try to zoom in a bit just to see if there's any clipping or distortion going on. But Ryan Morgan, I know he's obviously experienced in recording his vocals, so there's not much of that nature that happens on his vocals. But if we assume that we've got a new artist that's just sent you a song, you need to obviously go through it, make sure there's no clipping or distortion. Then another thing that I also then look out for is how dynamic the vocal is. This one is a bit dynamic, but not too much, because there are some vocals that I've got, the spikes are literally all over the place, but there's still a bit of dynamic going on this vocal. So I'll first just get an EQ to sort of clean it up a bit. Sometimes I go for the high pass, usually at about 80 or 100 depending. Then sometimes I go for just using a shelf and drag it down, which also serve more like a high pass, but instead of using a high pass filter. So as you can see, it's almost the same. But on this one, let's just go for the high pass, keep it at about 80. So now let's just listen to this before we do any other thing.
When we turn out the lights, the two of us alone together, something's just not right. But girl, you know that I would never ever let another's touch.
So as I'm listening to this vocal, obviously you can see a bit of that build up on the low end that we've high passed. I can actually pull this up to 100 on this particular record. And then another thing is around this area, I hear a bit of room tone as well. This is where you just pull it up a bit.
Come between the two of us, so no one else will ever take your place.
If you listen to this, sometimes the room tone is very noticeable, then the energy moves away from where it's noticeable, it goes a bit low again. So there's one thing we can do here. Either we just drag it down here, but open it up a bit more, say about 2 or 3 dB. Let's listen to that.
No one else comes close to you. No one makes me feel the way you do.
So this also does the job. But another thing that you can do if maybe you want to retain a bit of that low end is use a dynamic EQ, whereby when that sound is there, it pushes it down, but when it's not there, it lets go. But for this particular one, I'm quite happy with how it sounds like at the minute.
You're so special, girl, to me, and you'll always be eternal.
So another frequency I reach out for when I'm mixing a vocal is usually around 450, 500. Let's listen to how that sounds like on this particular one.
Every time I hold you near, You always say the words I love to hear. Girl, with just a touch, you can do so much. No one else comes close.
As you can hear how that sounds, you just pull it up. Let's leave it at about 490. Just drag this down about 4 dB, but try to make it slightly tighter. So let's use about 5 dB on the bandwidth.
And when I wake up to,
now let's listen to this vocal without this EQ.
You're my dream come true. Oh girl, you know that I will treasure every kiss and every day. I love you, girl, in every way. And I always will, 'cause in my eyes, no one else comes close to you. No one makes me feel the way you do.
So as you can hear, when we engage the EQ, the vocal does sound a lot cleaner, but you might not notice it very much, but it does add something. So one thing I also noticed is where he went on that high note, there's some resonance that's happening there. But what I do is I first get a bit of compression going in just to treat these high peaks before I then reach out to see where those resonances are and try to sort them. So for now, we just go for a compressor. So any compressor will do, but you usually need something that's a bit faster, like an 1176 kind of compressor. Or if you use any other compressor, just set the attack slightly fast and the release fast or medium. So for the purpose of this, let me just use our compressor. So let's bring this to about 4:1 ratio. Set this at about 5. Release at about 70 or 50 something. These are just roughly anyway. Now drag this down. Let's see how much compression we get in.
You'll always be eternally. Every time I hold you near, you always say the words I love to hear. Girl, with just a touch, you can do so much. No one else comes close. Every time I hold you near, you always say the words I love to hear. Girl, with just a touch, you can do so much. No one else comes close.
So this will do for now. As you can see, it's just a gentle compression to just glue the whole top and bottom together so that there's no much dynamics going on. Even though we still want to retain the dynamic, but not much. Now it's when I now reach out for a dynamic EQ, because instead of having to use an EQ to actually notch them all out, the resonances, I use a dynamic EQ so that it only happens when the sound is there. When the sound is not there, it let go. Because if we use a static EQ to do this, that means the sound is gone. But if we use a dynamic, when the sound is not there, I mean the resonance, it lets go. Then when the resonance comes, it dips it. Because the resonance is not on all the sound going across the sound all through. That's why most people obviously use Suit. So if you have Suit or the Reverb by Mastering the Mix, there is where it's handy. But as I tend to use dynamic EQ, let's just reach out for F6 by Waves. If you have not got F6 by Waves, a free plugin that does this really good is the Nova, TDR Nova.
And when I wake up to the touch of your head on my shoulder, you're my dream come true. I will treasure every kiss and every day. I love you, girl, in every way. And I always will, 'cause in my
So somewhere around here, I'm just gonna put a note there.
No one else comes close to you. No one makes me feel the way you do. You're so special, girl, to me, and you'll always be.
As you can see how tight I've actually made that so that it's not pulling much more than just that resonance. So this is how I'll go and look for most of the resonance peaks that needs to be dipped. But obviously for this video not to be too long, I'll just move on. After this, the next thing I'll go for is another compressor just to smoothen things out. Here I usually reach out for either the RVox or even the Stressor by UAD, or I can use the LA2A by UAD, or even any compressor, because Logic has also got LA2A emulation. So, but something that's a bit more smooth and gentle is what I want to reach out for. So for the purpose of this, let's just use the RVox because it's easier to dial in.
You need, you always say the words I love to hear. Girl, with just a touch, it can do so much. No one else comes close. When we turn out the lights, the two of us alone together, something's
So let me just bypass all these plugins so you guys can hear where we started.
just not right. But girl, you know that I would never, ever let another's touch come between the two of us. So no one else will ever take your place.
So all these sounds here that seems to be what the mic picked up from the headphone bleed, you can also just pull this gate, which is why this is also handy to just get rid of it.
No one else comes close to you. No one makes me feel the way you do. You're so special, girl.
At about 41. So as you can see how that's been cleaned up. Now the next thing is, all depends what you want to achieve also. Sometimes if say the vocal is competing with a lot more instruments, I'll throw in saturation. But because on this particular mix there's not much happening, but there's this free saturation that I normally reach out for, which is the kilohertz distortion. Then change this overdrive to saturate and bring the drive down.
To me, and you'll always be eternally. Every time I hold you near, you always say the words I love to hear. Girl, with just a touch, you can do so much. No one else comes close.
As you can see, that's adding a lot of body to this, and you can also play with the bias to help sort of smoothen things and make it interesting. So let's just move on, but let me back this down a bit because there's not much happening on this. And on the mix, I've got it only 50%. I can actually bring this mix to like 20% and add a bit more to this.
When I wake up to the touch of your head on my shoulder, you're my dream come true.
As you can see, what I feel like this adds is it makes the vocal have a bit more weight. So let's move on. The next thing is obviously now using the time-based effects. Sometimes also if I am running on a mix that's very busy, I go for parallel processing, which I also send this vocal to a bus and then crush it and send it back in. If you look down, you'll see my mixing template where I've also got all this set up. If you want to download that, it's free. I'll put a link so you can see the video where I had it on. So the next thing is, let's just go for a reverb. Making sure this is a stereo reverb. So let me just reach out for Valhalla.
Oh girl, you know that I will treasure every kiss and every day. I love you, girl, in every way, and I always will, 'cause in my eyes no one else comes close to you. No one makes me feel the way you do. You're so special, girl, to me, and you love.
Obviously, if you know the tempo of the song that you are working on, it's easier to work out how the decay and the pre-delay will be. But on this one, because I've not actually set the tempo of this, I've just left it 120 generic. So I'm trying to just use my ear and hear where it sounds okay and not too washy. Because remember, there's no much on this sound. It's only a piano. So let's listen to it alongside that.
You'll always be eternally. Every time I hold you near, you always say the words I love to hear. Girl, with just a touch, it can do so much. No one else comes close.
So as you can hear, with this already, the vocal is sounding as good as. Let's also throw in a bit of delay just to add some movement further to this vocal. Let's make it a ping pong.
I would never, ever let another touch come between the two of us. So no one else will ever take your place. No one else comes close to you. No one makes me feel the way you do. You're so special, girl, to me, and you'll always be eternally. Every time I hold you near, you always say the words I love to hear. Girl, with just a touch, you can do so much. No one else comes close.
So as you can see, this obviously is now a bit more invisible, that you don't have to actually hear it, but you have to feel it. So another thing that I might do to this is add a bit of Dimension D emulation, which is this plugin that Overloud gave free some months back, but it's not free anymore. But I think you might still be lucky if you go to their website and get this free. So let's go to Overloud. This is called Gem Mod. It's emulation of the Dimension D.
Every time I hold you near, you always say the words I love to hear. Girl, with just a touch, you can do so much. No one else comes close. The touch of your head on my shoulder, you're my dream come true. Oh girl, you know that I will treasure every kiss and every day. I love you, girl, in every way, and I always will, 'cause in my eyes no one else comes close to you. No one makes me feel the way you do. You're so special, girl, to me, and you'll always be eternally. Every time I hold you near, you always say the words I love to hear. Girl, with just a touch, it can do so much. No one else comes close.
So as you guys can see, with just few EQs, compressors, and this time-based effects, just 3 of them are reverb, delay, and that chorusy dimension D, this vocal is already sounding as good as it can be. So let's just listen to it without the piano, and then turn off all these effects that I got on it, and then put it back on again.
The two of us alone together, something's just not right. But girl, you know that I would never, ever let another's touch.
So another thing I might reach out for here is a de-esser, because I feel like some of the S's still needs a bit of taming, but they are not much, to be honest. But just to be on the safe side, I might still just throw in a quick de-esser just to catch maybe 4 dBs of them.
When we turn out the lights, the two of us alone together, something's just not right. But girl, you know that I would never, ever let another's touch.
Yeah, that sort of sounds a bit better now. So yeah, that's the next thing I might put here.
Come between the two of us, so no one else will ever take your place.
So let me go ahead and bypass all these effects so you guys can hear what we started with.
Two of us alone together, something's just not right. But girl, you know that I would never, ever let another's touch come between the two of us, so no one else will ever take your place. No one else comes close to you. No one makes me feel the way you do. You're so special, girl, to me, and you'll always be eternally. Every time I hold you near, you always say the words I love to hear. Girl, with just a touch, you can do so much. No one else comes close.
So there you go, guys. As you can see how easy it is, as long as you know what you are listening out for. That's why I thought, let me just start from beginning and show you guys what I listen out for when I'm mixing vocals. Obviously, if the vocal is a bit more complex, then like I said, on that saturation bit, I might increase that to help the vocal cut through, and also maybe add that parallel reverb, add the parallel compression, and also a boost on the top end, and get rid of the low end, because the more top end you have, the easier for your vocal to cut through. But if you do it on the main, or should I say the original sound, it sounds a bit too harsh and thin. That's why we use the parallel to help push that. And also, like on my other interview when I had Dom on the channel, where he said what also differentiates people that are starting out to the pros is they actually go and listen to each word, the one that's not coming out. Instead of crushing it too much with compression, you actually use automation to ride them. So that's also something to bear in mind. Some of the words you need to actually go in on the automation and increase that particular syllable or particular word to make it heard, instead of using compression, because a compression will affect other sounds, not just that particular sound you are going for. So if you know a way to not obviously damage the intelligibility of your sound, always reach for that first before going for some other stuff. So I hope this is helpful, guys. I'll see you guys on the next channel. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, also hit the like, and also leave a comment so that the YouTube algos will help this video to reach more people that this will benefit. So until then, I'll see you guys where I'll be posting what video will you like to see next on the channel under the community. So keep an eye out for that. See you then. Bye.